Hi, good evening. Just to reiterate, I'm Bethany McClenahan. I'm the project manager for the Mamaroneck Sheldrick Rivers Flood Risk Management Reduction Project. So I'm here just to give you guys an update on where we at. So we are currently in the design of the removal of the Ward Avenue Bridge. That is projected to take us through June of 2023. And then from there, we're working with the New York State on the local sponsor to do the project partnership agreement to release that $88 million in funding so we can continue the project and go into further design and construction. So that's
The only design work you're doing now is the removal of the bridge, not the replacement of the bridge?
correct. Due to the preliminary engineering and design funding that we have right now, we can only do the removal, but we're not going to be letting a contract out until we have the replacement design as well. And that will take place right after the removal. And once that project partnership agreement has been signed.
Continue on. Why don't we try and save our questions to she's finished with her presentation?
That's it. That's where we are.
Well, you're the soul of brevity.
Short and sweet, to the point.
Dan, you have more questions?
Is it anticipated, at the public meeting, there was discussion about the cost-benefit ratios and tweaks. Are you undertaking a cost-benefit
Yes, we're currently doing that
evaluation
now
of
as well.
various aspects of the project?
Yes, we're updating the current costs as well during this phase, and we're actually going to be starting the H&H work as well to update that with the due
Do you have
higher flows and
Do
everything.
you have a timeline for the cost-benefit ratio update?
Probably about March.
Nora?
Nope, not yet. Not yet.
Yeah. Bethany, is it possible to ask the federal elected officials to add another Army Corps team to work on Phase 2 while your team is working on Phase 1 of the project?
There's no funding, so this is, what do you mean by phase 2? First
Well,
of
you're
all?
working on Phase 1, right? The Water Avenue Bridge.
Yeah, we designated that as phase 1, yeah.
Okay. So in parallel to that, could somebody be designing Phase 2?
Well, once we do the project partnership agreement and that release of funding, we'll have more teams on to design and,
Okay.
and do the construction.
So once that's...
Once that's released, yes.
So that is, so that it's a possibility in the future to have,
Correct.
to be planning multiple phases at the same time?
Yes, yes.
Thank you. That's my main concern.
I have a follow-up to that one.
Go ahead.
So is there anything we can do to help facilitate the partnership agreement with the state, or is it just a matter of working through the process?
It's just working through the process and you guys working with Westchester County and the New York State DEC to work on that agreement.
And Schumer's office has been very...
Are there any hiccups or problems in that we
Dan, I
can
was still- We
facilitate?
can't talk over each other, and I was still talking.
Stop talking.
Okay, so just, it's important for the people who are interpreting at home. And I know that Schumer's office is still involved in that agreement, is that correct?
As far as I know, yes. We're not involved in that local sponsor agreement, just because if whoever is designated the local sponsor, we will work with, whether it be DEC or Westchester County, that's who we work with. And then there's a project partners, which is the Village of Mamaroneck and so forth, so.
Dan?
Are there any hiccups or things that we can do to help facilitate the partnership agreement, either from your vantage point or Saeed's vantage point or the county's vantage point or the village point?
I'll let Syed talk about that, I guess, when I'm done.
Well, Lou?
The timeframe, I mean, you're working on planning for the removal of the Ward Avenue Bridge, which will happen, you guess, when, or you estimate when?
The 90% plans and specs will be done by June, so in that time frame between January and June, we'll be working with the local sponsor to get that project partnership agreement, so it's a seamless transition from one phase to the next phase.
So in the next year, the only thing that'll be happening is removal of a bridge?
Correct, yes.
Okay, all right. That's probably a good deal slower than a lot of people are comfortable with.
What is, just to give folks some perspective, because folks are understandably anxious and have a small store of patience. And I understand that, but I also understand that there's a process, and the process has to play out. What is normal for a process like this? Are we on a normal path? Are we on a fast path?
We're on a normal path.
Is there a way to get on a fast path?
Once we can get that project partnership agreement, we can move it to a faster path because we'll have the funding available to implement additional designers and construction. So right now we're limited with the funding we have and moving forward with that.
Okay.
This board has determined to dredge the rivers and deepen them to try and complement the project.
In areas where you're not.
Areas where you're not. We view it with a certain amount of urgency. We'd like to know if how you view it. Is that something that we should be doing?
Yes, to remove the debris and everything else in the excess sedimentation that's in the river, because it's not tidally influenced up here. Yes, you'll hold more capacity. And then once you have that information, we'll work with you guys to get the surveys and update our surveys to put into our modeling so we can capture everything that's been going on.
So our dredging will affect your modeling?
Yes.
That's good to know. So would that possibly lower the cost-benefit ratio?
No.
No?
No.
Okay.
No.
Mr. Saeed, do you have updates for us?
Nothing much.
Microphone.
Why don't you go to the microphone, please?
But that's pretty much the update from me also. I think my understanding is the next step is PPA, Project Partnership Agreement,
Okay.
between, we don't know who the local sponsor is.
Right.
So once we have the local sponsor and we have the funding secured, then we'll go with the PPA.
Okay. So we'll have to tie up that loose end rapidly on our part.
Second?
To move that
Yeah.
process forward.
Right.
Okay. All right. Unless, does anybody else on board have anything they want to ask right now?
I may have a couple after we finish this.
Okay. Tony Gelber is representing the Flood Committee, and he's going to ask a few questions. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to answer them all right here, but if you can't answer it here, could you just then?
So good evening. I'm Tony Gelber, Chair of the Flood Committee. I'd like to thank the Mayor and the Board for allowing us to participate in this, and welcome Bethany and Syed, if that's how you say it, and if not, I apologize. And I want to thank the Flood Committee for all the hard work they've done. So we were told we had 4 questions. So we have 4 questions. We had quite a debate in our committee of whether they should be detailed or short, and the detailed didn't win. At any rate, so some of them do have more than one part, though. So we have 4 questions and then a clarification, right? This is where we got under the wire there. So the village had sent you, partly at our request, a request to tweak the project, right? And we had 3 tweaks. One was to put an open channel flow under the parking lot. The second was to either raise more homes in Harbor Heights and or work with some channel modifications up there. And the third was to really change the flow through Columbus Park, either through the bridges or the direction, something like that. We did get a response, or I could say the village got a response. It was rather long and complicated, and so our question is twofold. One, can you put that in plain English for us, simple terms? And then the second is, and I think the board just alluded to this, we would really like to start at least 2 parts of that, like ASAP. We think that open culvert across the parking lot, even if it got started, you call it an overflow in your project, I think, and I think that would really help with flooding in the short term. And as the board just pointed out, if nothing's going to happen due to just the process, if we could get that going,
Robert, leave that open a little bit.
if we could get that going, I think we would see some flood relief, right? The other part is that the people in Harbor Heights, I know you're probably going to have to wait for the H&H study to do that, but is there a way for us to get some relief up there? And, you know, we've been talking about the road to nowhere forever, and, you know, Harrison is afraid, I think, to do stuff because they're afraid if they take stuff out, it's going to flood people who've never been flooded. At any rate, so a simple answer to the tweaks, and can we do this stuff ASAP? Okay? Okay. All right, number 2. I may have to put my glasses on at some point here. After the H&H study, and this is really, I kind of covered this. Can you work with us on maximizing solutions for both Harbor Heights and Columbus Park, okay? 3, and we did speak about this, I think, with you at some point, I think a May 18th memo time, you know, when you were here. So the question is kind of twofold. Can the project monies be moved from one part of the project to another? For example, I think the county and the state, and I'm not sure who, is helping fund the Waverly Avenue Bridge. So can we move that money to another part of the project, for example, Harbor Heights, or the open channel? And the second is more detailed on that, really. So, you know, 4 parts like the open channel, maybe we want to make it, we're calling it a grassy channel. In Harbor Heights, you know, people don't have the money to raise their homes. So, you know, can we kind of fund some of that money to help them with the permits, the fees, maybe some structural stuff? So so it's a whole money question. On a big pot, can we move big pots around? Then can we support little pots? Okay. The 4th is on communications with the Army Corps. And I'm going to quote your answers, hopefully correctly. So in the May 18th questions, the FMAC asked whether we could meet with you on a fairly regular basis. And I think your answer in writing was, we would love to meet FMAC. So the question is, can FMAC meet with the Corps either in person or in Zoom on some type of regular basis so we could communicate, okay? The clarification. So we heard you talk about the H&H study during the May 18th meeting and again a bit tonight. So I guess I tend to be a person that jumps, and my boss even tells me sometimes, Tony, stop jumping to help people. I thought you would be down here May 19th with your engineer doing the H&H study. That hasn't happened. So we're wondering, like, when is it going to happen? Are you going to do all areas of the village? How detailed is it going to be? How is it going to inform the process? And, you know, who's going to know about it? So how does that whole process work? So that's our H&H question. So that's our 4.5 questions.
Bethany, is there anything in those questions that you could address tonight?
Thank you, Bethany, and Syed.
And Tony, would you open that door a little bit?
Yeah, the door has to remain a little bit open, so it's closed all the way, it locks. And then other people can't get in.
Okay, so to address the first question about tweaking the project, yes, we can tweak the project, and as we get into the design, we will work into those tweaks, you know, whether it be a closed channel flow, open channel flow, what type of bottom, grassy bottom, gravel bottom, you know, so those things will be worked out in the design in coordination with the Flood Control Committee and with the mayor and with the board. We would like to start the projects as soon as possible. We're just in a holding pattern at the moment until we get this PED phase, the Ward Avenue Bridge, completed, and then releasing of that project partnership agreement. So once we get that project partnership agreement, we can move faster on the other aspects of the project. And then for relief in the Harbor Heights area, that'll come out when we revise the H&H study. I don't have an answer for that at the moment of how many additional houses, less houses, or what else we can do up there until we actually get that modeling completed. So I don't have an answer for that at this moment. And same with Columbus Park with all those H&H solutions. So that will come out within the next year or two. So project monies moving from one part of the project to another, that's something we have to determine when we determine this project partnership agreement and work through our regulations as well within the Army Corps. Just because right now it specifically states Waverly Avenue Bridge. We all know that the village is currently working on that, so that's something we're going to be working.
It's actually the town.
Working within our agency to revise that. And communications, yes, now that we have the design actually moving forward, we could set up maybe regular monthly meetings with everybody. We could do it Zoom, and then maybe every once in a while, we could come meet in person. So I was kind of waiting for that design to actually start, so we actually can talk about something. And now that it has actually started, we can actually talk and move forward from there. So we did have engineers come out to look at the Ward Avenue Bridge. They came up and took pictures and, some minor measurements and stuff like that. But when we do the H&H study, we're going to have a full-blown survey done. So that's when we'll coordinate with with Jerry and the town engineer.
What kind of survey? I didn't understand.
A topographical
Oh, I didn't hear it. Okay.
survey, so to update our current model. So that's why you haven't really seen any, but people have been up here to look at the area in general and then the Ward Avenue Bridge.
Okay. When you get back, the questions that you couldn't answer tonight for Flood Mitigation Advisory Committee.
I can work with Tony on.
Yeah, and just, so you know, that,
Okay.
those,
moving the door.
Yeah, I'll relook at that letter and see if I can make it into more common language. I know that's an issue sometimes, so.
The answers and the questions the questions from the Flood Mitigation Advisory Committee and the answers that you give them will then inform the decisions that the Board of Trustees ultimately makes about where the project goes.
Okay.
So that they're advisory to us, and, their pertinent questions will then hopefully help this board or future boards make decisions.
Sounds good. Okay.
All right. Saeed?
Yes.
Anything to add, or? Yeah. I'm glad you came.
May I ask about our permits, our dredging permits? Where are we with that?
I can follow up and get a response to the board tomorrow.
Yeah, now those are DEC or
No, Army Corps.
Army Corps?
Yeah.
Bethany, you know anything about that?
Can we generate a sense of urgency on those permits?
I reached out to our permitting folks, and they were supposed to contact you all. I'll follow up again tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, you just tell them that we've declared an emergency, we've allocated the money, we're ready to go, we're waiting on paperwork.
Yeah.
And the folks who live here have a certain amount of anxiety every time it rains. And I don't think we should be waiting around.
I don't work with that permits on that project, but we did reach out to Alexandra on the permitting. The last I spoke to her, which was 2 weeks ago, she did not have the permits. They weren't sent, so the town was supposed to talk to their engineers to see if they sent them. I have not heard an update from that.
But I mean,
So she's anticipating them, and once she gets them, she'll work on them.
you concur that it is a matter of a certain amount of urgency.
It is urgent, yes, but we don't have the permits in hand, so we can't do anything about it.
I mean, maybe we could just underline it to them that this is not just a normal request. It's going to flood again. and
Well, once we
rain
get the
again.
permits, we can fast track it through, but we just haven't received them yet, so.
Were you looking to say something? Oh,
Do you mean the permit applications?
Correct.
Okay, so,
So we'll follow up. Okay.
If I may, as a liaison to the Flood Committee, a couple of things to amplify, I think, what the abbreviated questions. There was discussion about the open culvert and maybe making that more than just an additional flow for an overflow, but making it the main flow, i.e. moving the river.
No.
Because, no, I'm just, this was, in what you're looking at, that was part of their thought process. Also, there was a long list of questions that FEMA had sent to the Corps on multiple occasions and still has not had answers to those. So at some point in time, if that can be answered, it would be helpful. I don't know.
I have answered everything that has come my way.
and it was given to...
It was given to the town engineer, my
Yeah, you did.
counterpart, so I have answered everything.
They've been, all of them, because
Yes, sir.
the committee has not received them.
Tony, didn't you get the answers from Army Corps?
We got one set of answers. from the memo that I sent to you, Bethany. So there was a previous email
Did-
sent.
Microphone.
Pretty sure. I know the
Microphone.
committee and I did not get.
Microphone.
Microphone, he needs a microphone.
You need a
You
microphone.
need a microphone, Tony.
Tony.
Sharing screen. The set that I sent you, you definitely got the answers, and that was in with the public questions. There was a previous email, which I think Peggy had sent originally, Peggy was the previous chair, and then I think I may have sent it again. Those, we didn't see the answers to those, I'm not saying you didn't send them, but, so, should I
Okay.
resend those to you?
Resend the questions and I'll take a look, because they might have been in that that letter I sent you. I might have combined them. But I know I've responded to all the questions that were sent, so.
Were the questions duplicative?
Excuse me?
Were the questions duplicative?
Some of them were, yeah, but it was, you know, it was like a different set of questions.
Okay.
Okay, I'll take a look.
Okay, great.
Also, if I may, does each, there were 4 phases, I think, you would, for the project. Does each phase have to have a partnership agreement, or is the
No.
partnership agreement going to cover all of them?
The partnership agreement will cover all of them. It covers the remaining project. So we just broke it out for construction contracts and design contracts.
Said, I actually do have a question for you. You know, you want to get... You know, the governor recently announced $3 billion in funding to build resiliency and climate mitigation change. Will we have access to that money for separate mitigation projects upriver in areas not covered by the Army Corps, like the reservoir and you know, places, you know, the dam and stuff like that?
I can take this question to our executive, but I think my understanding is we are expecting some money, bond deck money, right? You're talking about the bond deck money?
Yes.
Yeah, we're expecting some money. Next year, we'll see how much we get, and then the executive will find out how much we can utilize for this project. But
I'm not just talking about this project. I'm talking about using our money for stuff not covered by this project.
So,
I think the mayor is asking, the dam and the reservoir and upstream are not part of the Army Corps project.
okay.
They're not part of the project area, they're not part of anything that's being included at this point in time. So I think the mayor is asking, you know, if there's money available from the state, would these types of projects, you know, the dam rehabilitation, which I know you're intimately familiar with,
Mamaroneck
the
Dam,
reservoir, which I know that you've had a hand in, and upstream, you know, in terms of the flows, whether these types of things could be covered, and if so, what can be done to help expedite that? I think that's really what you're asking.
That's the long form. Yeah, that's the long form question, yes.
So the question is if we can use,
If we could use this...
Some of the money.
This $3 billion for projects exclusive of the Army Corps. Dredging the reservoir, what used to be the reservoir, and bridge rehabilitation.
Of the dam.
And just, you know, whatever we deem is a good project that'll, you know, the experts will tell us will give us flood mitigation outside of the Army Corps. Would that money be purpose for that?
okay, so you're talking about the Mamaroneck Dam, the high hazard dam, right? And the reservoir behind it?
Let's take it out of specific projects.
Any dam here, okay.
Can we use, or can we get funding from that $3 billion pool for flood mitigation projects that aren't the Army Corps?
I don't know the answer, but I'll get back to you after I talk to the executive. I think when I was in the dam safety, they got some bond deck money to do this kind of, but it has to be owned by the municipality, local government, not private dams. That was 1996 bond deck money, but this time I don't have
So
answer.
if you could find us out that, but
I will.
take the dam out of your head,
Yep.
and let's just go with projects to mitigate flooding.
Outside this project,
Yeah.
okay.
Maybe this might be, would that, the money from the bond deck go to the various state agencies which we could apply for money through the consolidated funding application?
Second,
Would the bond act money be appropriated to the various state agencies that we can apply to under the consolidated funding application?
okay, I'll get back to you. These two questions.
Thank you. appreciate your time. So Bethany, the next phase is to get the sponsorship settled, but you're still moving apace at the design through Ward Avenue and removal and the design of that area?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. And once the funding gets ironed out, what's the timeline look like then? Now you have your money. The dam has opened, as it were.
I don't have a definitive schedule at the moment. That's something we'd be working on to see the availability, whether we're going to be using AE contractors as well, or a combination of both. So, we're looking at probably 2 years for design, and then, Ward Avenue would be probably another year, well, not in addition, but within that year for construction. So we're working in parallel, be
2 years for
constructing and
design?
designing and constructing and designing at the same time
Did you say 2 years for design?
for the remaining of the project, yes.
Okay.
Enough of Ward Avenue.
Minus Ward Avenue, yeah, this is outside.
I understand. Anybody else on the board? Dan?
I just wanted to add, the one element, project component, which was the Waverly Avenue Bridge. I actually attended 2 meetings with the town today, and the question was asked at both of those meetings about the progress and schedule for that. The town reported that they're looking to award a construction contract in probably January of next year. So while the components of what the Army Corps is working on may not be worked on, next month or in the next, several months, you will see a component of the project that they were going to do be constructed sooner rather than later.
You've also, signed off on the Waverly Avenue Bridge from a flooding standpoint, right? Has the Army Corps reviewed that?
No. So I did ask that question. I think it might have been after the meeting that we had back in May. I asked the town and their engineer what the status was and whether they had spoken with the Corps. They told me that at the beginning of the design process, much like we did with Hillside Avenue, they did talk to the Corps. The Corps gave them the generic specifications for what they need to do. And when I last asked about this back in May, they said their engineer, they were going to go back to the Corps again where they are right now. But I don't know if that's
I know they
occurred.
went to the Corps when I was there
Yeah.
to talk about it, so before 17.
Yeah, no, but it was definitely, it's on the town's radar. I can, follow up with the town engineer. He's actually on vacation this week, but I can follow up with him next week to see if there's been any further checking with the Corps about the Waverly Avenue Bridge.
Okay.
At the public meeting that we had at the Emlyn, that question was specifically asked and was answered by your panel, that they had already coordinated and already sent information about and worked with
I'm pretty sure
with the
that
town, whoever the design engineer was on the behalf of the town, to do some modifications to make it better for.
I
your
know they
requirements.
coordinated a while ago, so I don't think anything recently has happened with that.
Yeah, like I said, the last I asked was after the public meeting, because I think a question had come in from one of the residents, and I had reached out to the town and their engineer, and they said they were going to follow up with the Corps before they finalized everything to make sure that it was designed according to Hoyle. Maybe that's not the best term, but they were going to make sure it met the Army Corps' objectives.
Okay. Bethany, would you be willing to come back in the beginning of the year?
Definitely, of course.
And, exclusive of the flood, when you come, that's fine, but just come back to the regular meeting here
Yes,
in about, the beginning of the year sometime,
yes.
and we can talk about where we are, what we could do. Hopefully there'll be issues ironed out by then.
Of course.
I really appreciate both of you coming here tonight.
Thank you. Appreciate being here. It's nice to see everybody.
And, you're getting to be regular. We have people who work for us who tend up moving to the community.
It is a beautiful area.
It is. And
My kids
hopefully,
would-
soon it won't flood.
Yes,
There you go.
hopefully. We'll alleviate the flooding.
Thank you both. For those of you, the many of you who have just come in, we've been talking to the Army Corps of Engineers and the New York Department of Environmental Conservation, who are very involved in helping us with the Army Corps plan. They were just giving us an update. The Flood Committee asked some questions. The Board of Trustees asked some questions. They will be coming back in January. In January, maybe we'll have to have a venue that's larger and see if it's appropriate, if we can answer questions from the public at the time. Okay? But they're going to be going. If you're here for that, this is the end of that. We're going to continue on with our work session. This was just a very brief where we are, and in essence, where we are is we're still in the design stage, and hopefully the design, they'll first be working on the Waverly, they'll first be working on the Water Avenue Bridge, taking out the Water Avenue Bridge. They work from the bottom and work their way up. Can you just explain why that happens?
Yeah.
Use the mic.
So it's to reduce, so you don't exacerbate any flooding upstream. So if you took out the, say, the northernmost component or the upstreammost component, you might exacerbate flooding downstream. So if you start from downstream up, it alleviates that.
And working downstream, if you alleviate a problem downstream, hopefully it'll get the water out of the community quicker.
Correct.
And help the upstream folks.
That's correct.
So that there are incremental benefits as you're working,
Yes.
and you don't have to wait for the whole project to be done because water will, as it gets lower.
Yeah, you'll see a
Downstream
little
flow
bit of a
faster.
difference once the Water Avenue Bridge is removed. It's not going to totally cure the flooding, but you'll see a little bit of reduction. And then as you move upstream, you'll see that.
Just as an aside, were you involved in the Rockaway Beach program?
I am not, but I do know about it.
Okay, because I grew up going down there during the summers,
Okay.
and I'll tell you, what the Corps did with the Broadwalk and how they improved the recreational facilities around it, and they built natural dunes that Rockaway never had. It's really a vast improvement.
Thank you.
And when I go down there during the summer, I'm always like, I hope this is what we get in the village of Mamaroneck. And because I remember when they replaced the Broadwalk, they didn't put up a wooden Broadwalk, which Rockaway had for
Correct.
120 years, and people were screaming, "Oh my God, it's not going to be a wood Broadwalk!" And it's so much better. It's just
Or splinters.
Yeah, exactly. I don't tell you how many splinters my mother took out of my feet. Yeah. But thank you very much,
Thank you.
and go in peace. All right, we're going to continue on
Thank
Oh.
you. Thanks
with
for
our work
coming.
session agenda.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.